Welcome back, book fiends, to Wicked Good Books, a channel dedicated to books and things book adjacent. My name is Nick and I'm the host of this channel. For today's video, we're going to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I don't normally do these kind of videos on this channel. It's more geared towards NerdTube with a booktube flavor, but I do love watching these videos, and I actually really like the list for the tag itself. I think it's a lot of fun, and honestly, I've had a really good reading year this year, so I've been offline a bit. I've been working on our podcast, The Unlocked Tune, lately, which is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Pocket Casts. I haven't had a lot of time to shoot a lot of Wicked Good Books content, but overall I've had a really great reading year, and I'm really excited to share with you guys a little bit anyways. We still got half the year to go, but let's jump right into it. So the first tag is the best book you've read so far in 2022. Without a doubt that it would be Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, the third book in the Locked Tomb series. It's going to be now 4 books. I received a physical arc of the book. I finished it just after my birthday month in June, probably really the first week of July, to be honest with you, and have still not fully recovered from it. I can't even really talk about it. However, I did post a written spoiler-free light review on my community tab on Wicked Good Books. You can find the link down below. You can check it out if you're interested. If you're a fan of Locked Tomb series, highly recommend it. But yeah, let's jump to the next one. Honestly, the vast majority of these answers could literally just be Nona the Ninth, but I promise I withheld. The temptation was there. As much as I really want to explain why that book was my favorite book of the year, I cannot for spoilers' sake. What I will say is that it really moved me in ways that I was not anticipating. And like I said in my review, it felt like a book that was geared towards and written for me, like me, Nick, the reader, and readers like me. And if you're a fan of the Locked Tomb series, if you loved Gideon and Hera the Ninth, this book's also for you, and I can't wait to discuss it with the TLT community and my fellow boneheads, especially the podcast crew. Very much looking forward to that once it's out in the world, out in the wild. But for variety's sake, let's say number 2, best sequel you've read so far in 2022. That would be Howling Dark by Christopher Ruocchio. Oh my goodness, this book was amazing. It blew my mind. The Mass Effect Interstellar vibes were real. I really enjoyed Empire of Silence and was really curious to see where he was going to take it, because the pacing of that book is very different than what I was used to, and I didn't know where we were going to pick up with Howling Dark. And Christopher Ruocchio did not disappoint. He picks up where I didn't expect it, and it goes where I wouldn't have even guessed it would go. And that book really is one of my all-time favorite books. It's definitely in my top 10. I absolutely loved it. I did a half audio, half physical, kind of going back and forth depending on what chapter I was on. But there are some moments in that book that will stick with me forever, that just spoke to me as a fan of science fiction and sci fantasy, and just really, really liked it. And not only is Ruocchio's prose amazing, but his character work is so wonderful and refreshing and very progressive. And especially for a genre that has had a lot of issues with progressive ideals in the past, this book series, the Sun Eater series, just wipes the floor, cleans the slate, and builds up the genre. And I think it's a really great indication of where the genre can go, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing where Christopher takes us next with the third book in the series, Demon in White, which I should be getting to this month. Number 3 is new releases you haven't read yet but want to. So I got a bunch of them, to be honest. There are several that I actually DNF'd, and I don't DNF that often, so when I do, it just wasn't working for me. But What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, that's like at the top of my list for new releases that I'm trying to get my hands on. It's a shorter novella inspired by the Edgar Allan Poe short story, Fall of the House of Usher. And I'm just very much looking forward to reading that book. I love T. Kingfisher's work. I really enjoyed Hollow Places, and I love the original Poe story. So I feel like it's like the perfect combination of these two things I really enjoy. And the cover is gorgeous. I've actually gotten a chance to inspect the physical version of the book. It's got a really beautiful foil stamp on the hardcover, as well as some really cool and creepy art on the inside. I just love the mutated rabbit imagery. It's just really cool. It really works for me. And I think what I'm most excited about with that one is that it's a retelling of the story, but it's using different, like a slightly different setting. And it seems more like a biological threat or a more, I don't want to say environmental, because Fall of the House of Usher is very environmental. The house is literally a character. This one seems like nature will play a bigger part in the story, and that is always right up my alley. Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer is one of my favorite series, and for some reason this one kind of gives me those just evil fungus, mutated wildlife vibe, and I'm very much here for it. Number 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of 2022, and that is going to be a book that I only recently found out about maybe a couple months ago, and that is going to be The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang. I am ecstatic about this book. I don't know too much about it other than the fact that it deals with sapphic characters in a science fiction world that deals with, I don't want to say mechs, but biomechs, very similar to Evangelion. In fact, I did see the author post the dedication to the book, and it's dedicated to all the Eva pilots out there, and being a massive fan of Evangelion. It's literally one of my all-time favorite animes. It's inspired the book that I'm writing. It inspires the books that I read. Just the fact that it has to do with that alone has me very much sold. And then the dedication alone was like, I'm here. Like, Eva pilot, president accounted for it. Where's the book? I'm here to read it. I'm hoping to get an arc from Tor. Shout out to my Tor representative. If you're watching this, I'd love to get my hands on it. Still waiting for it to come in the mail. I think it might have already been sent out. But I can't wait to sink my teeth into that one and also buy it when it comes out in stores. If you haven't heard about it, I'm going to put pictures of all the books up here on the screen so you can see them. But yeah, The Genesis of Misery sounds really interesting. You have a character that is able to bond with their AI mech suit or bodysuit of some sort and get into mischief. And that just sounds like really awesome to me. Very Evangelion, very Gundam. And those are some of my favorite story tropes in some of my favorite animes. So I'm really looking forward to that one, to be honest. I don't know what's been happening to me lately, but there's been a lot of like nostalgia popping back up ever since I finished Stranger Things season 4. Just like been really in the mood to watch old animes like Gundam and Evangelion and Escaflowne. So The Genesis of Misery really kind of ticks that box for me, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it. All right, let's move on to number 5, the biggest disappointment. And that is going to be, and this is a bummer, guys, because I think this book will work for other people, and I think it has worked for other people. And there's been several books this year that were on my most anticipated releases video that I picked up and read this year, got either halfway through them or finished them, and they were just either not for me or just really disappointing. This one hurt a bit. This one is City of Dusk by Tara Sim. I was just enthralled with the concept. I loved the cover art, loved the art that the author was posting, from fan art to official commission art. It just gave me such Mistborn meets Locked Tomb vibe. And I think because I went into the book wanting that the Mistborn Locked Tomb energy, and it didn't get it right away or at all, it just was a kind of like a letdown. And that's my own fault for bringing that baggage into the read. But honestly, the writing style, the pacing, the characters, and really the dialogue between the characters, it was just not for me. It's marketed as an adult book, but it felt very young adult. We're dealing with young adult themes, young characters, and the way they speak and treat each other, and the things they're going through. Felt very coming of age. Just the elements and tropes you'd see in YA. And I'm not saying the book is YA. I actually DNF'd it about 10 chapters in. I'm not really sure if it got better or worse. I've heard some people really like it, and I've heard other people feel exactly the same way I do. I don't like to harp on or be overly negative about books I didn't enjoy. Generally, if I didn't like it, I just put it down and move on with my life. One thing I really like to do actually is give that book to someone I think will enjoy it. And I actually have one of my patrons from the Wicked Good Books Discord server is going to take it from me, so I'm really excited that's going to go to a happy home, and I'm really hoping he digs it. And number 5 on the tags is the flip side of that, the biggest surprise. I've had a lot of surprises this month. I've had a lot of surprises this year. Just really enjoying the vast majority of books I picked up and read, which has been awesome. Last year's a pretty good reading year, but I feel like this year has just been like 4 and 5 stars galore. And I'm kind of being a little more choosy with what I read, and especially now moving forward towards the second half of the year. But if I'm going to go with the biggest surprise that I had this year, I would say that would have to be book 4 in the Malzahn Book of the Fallen series by Stephen Erickson, House of Chains. This is a book that I almost quit several times in the first part. The book split up into parts. It's called books, book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, and so on. And the book is split up that way. In book 1, part 1, it had some content and just really some really grim and dark content that was just not for me, that really turned my stomach, and I really had to kind of push myself through it. And I actually put it down, and it actually really bothered me several times because it was just so excessive, with sexual assault and violence towards women and children and things that were just way too, I can read it when it's in books, and I can handle it just fine most of the time, but it was just really explicit and just really senseless and hard to grapple with, considering you are following this main character who is committing these crimes. And it reminded me a little bit of Mark Lawrence's book, Prince of Thorns, I think it's called, but like cranked out to 11, to be honest. And at least in that book, though, that character is pitched as an evil character, and you're getting into. I had not been properly prepared for Karsa Orlong before I started the book. But here we are. I took a break from reading it. Actually, I took like a mental health break from reading it and talked to some friends who I know have read the book series, both on my Discord, on Bookstagram. I talked to Joanna from What Resonates on Joanna's channel. I talked to her via Instagram, and was able to kind of like bond over Malazan and kind of talk it through. I was listening to the 10 Very Big Books podcast episodes surrounding this character in these chapters, and through all of that, I was able to kind of work my way through it and process the information and understand why Steven Erikson chose to write this character this way. And even though I don't necessarily enjoy it or agree with it, I was able to work through it and continue reading it. And then the book, after I got past that hurdle, it was like I had stepped forth on this Malazan threshold that I think probably most Malazan readers come to, this crossroads where it's like, here's the line in the sand. You know, if you can stomach this, or if you can comprehend it, understand it, and why it's being written this way, why Steven Erikson chose to have this point of view character, and what it might mean for the future, you know, step forward. But this might be, I think it's anyways, at least for me, my perspective, I think there was a line where a lot of people probably get to it like, this is not for me. And I would not blame them. I was honestly one of those people myself, but had a great support system. I took the time I needed to process the information, and I moved forward, and that book ended up just completely blowing my mind. You meet new characters, new perspectives happen, and it just went to places I didn't think it was going to go, and I really, really loved it. It was such a fun ride by the end of it, and which seems like an odd thing to be saying for a book that started off so dark, but you don't really stick with that character a whole lot, and the other characters I met just became some of my absolute favorite characters in Malazan and some of my favorite characters in grimdark fantasy. And after reading that book especially, to me, Malazan is grimdark. It might not be today's definition of grimdark, but it is definitely my definition of grimdark per the Warhammer 40K's definition of that subgenre. And to be honest, it's not just that. It's so much more than that singular genre, but there's definitely some elements of grimdark that are very highlighted in Malazan, Book of the Fallen. But that was my biggest surprise. It really wowed me over by the end, and I ended up loving it. And I went from like absolutely hating it and wanting to like sell my book and stop reading the series. Like, I was just in a really bad place with it, to be honest. And then after talking to some friends and kind of working my way through it, it just had a complete opposite reaction, and it surprised even me, which I love when a book can do that. And it's just testament to Steven Erikson's abilities as a writer and his abilities to challenge us as readers to, you know, I don't want to say challenge ourselves. If that kind of content bothers you or it's not your jam, like, it's not your jam. Move on to the next thing, you know? But I can't talk about it too much without giving spoilers away, but after listening to Steven Erikson talk about it on his interviews with the podcast and the article he wrote, I understood it a little bit more, and I was able to kind of move forward with it. I was so glad that I did. All right, number 7 is new favorite author. I have several new favorite authors this year. Some obvious answers are Christopher Rocchio, the Sun Eater series, Joe Abercrombie, the First Law series. These are authors that I kind of wish I had started reading earlier, because they're just almost like no-brainers to me. They're amazing writers. They are masters of their craft and of storytelling, of prose and character development and world development and atmospheric reads. They just totally 10 out of 10 authors. I will buy anything they put out, to be honest. But I will say my other two authors I made a long list of authors. I had to kind of cut it short because I've read a lot of new authors this year. I just finished Border Keeper by Kirsten Hall. I had read Star Eater by her last year and really, really enjoyed it. And the Border Keeper was a different story, different world, but it really moved me. And I just love the writing style and the way she writes, the way her prose flows. It just really works for me. And I can't wait to pick up the second book in that world, Second Spear. I believe it's called Second Spear. Very much looking forward to that. And I think, fingers crossed, there's a chance that I'm going to be talking about these books more, because I believe that Kirsten Hall will be doing an interview with Wicked Good Books in a few months. But we'll get to that in a different video. I also had C.L. Clarke, author of the Unbroken book that I'm reading currently, that I really enjoyed, and they just totally blew my mind with this book. I love these two characters in this world. I find it to be incredibly well written and extremely immersive, and it was exactly the kind of fantasy I was looking for, coming off of Well of Ascension, kind of lukewarm, and it's exactly like the medicine I needed. So C.L. Clarke, I'm very much looking forward to what they put out next, and I believe it's going to be a sequel to The Unbroken. But overall, if I'm going to have to pick one author that's like my favorite new author that I hadn't heard about until this year, it would have to be Eric LaRocca. He is a horror author. He's written tons of self-published and indie and now picked up by Titan's book horror novellas that are really disturbing, beautiful cover art, very unsettling imagery in prose, the way he plays with form and messes with poetry and letters and recordings and prose is just absolute magical and horrifying. I haven't read many horror books that can make me feel the way I do when I'm watching a good horror movie, and Eric LaRocca achieves that with his books. You might recognize things have gotten worse since the last time we spoke. You've lost a lot of blood. And his latest book, We Can Never Leave This Place, just came out to novella. I'll put a link down below to his website where you can check it out. But if you're looking for a good horror read, just in time for the end of summer going into autumn, pick up Eric LaRocca. Highly recommend him. Extremely impressed with his abilities as a writer, and I can't wait to see what he does next, especially with long form. I can't wait to see this author pick up a pen and write a novel. I think it's going to be right up there with Joe Hill and Stephen King. Number 8 is newest fictional crush. I have a list here. I won't spend too much time on explaining why, but Terrain from The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, huge crush on her. I think she is awesome and badass, but not just awesome and badass. She's so true to her word and herself. I haven't read a steadfast, strong female character like this in a very long time. Not since Gideon from Gideon the Ninth. She's not as funny as Gideon, but she has her own thing, her own personality, and I really just love that character. This character, this world, is very much what I kind of hoped and wished the Baru Cormorant world was, but I'll leave it at that. Also, I have Valka from the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio. Valka is such a cool, calculated, just absolute badass female scientist character. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mass Effect, but Liara and Valka have a lot in common to me. They're just this badass engineer, scientist who can run and gun at the same time, but also has a highly intelligent brain. Just an absolute tactician, absolute historian, and just such a cool character to follow. But on top of all that, I love that she still has her agency and her job and her role in the party. It never gets overshadowed by Hadrian or the rest of the crew. I find that to be really awesome. I also really dig that she's a sex-positive character, which I find very progressive for science fiction, and that's something that I was not anticipating with that character or these books, and it's something that I think a lot of readers will find very refreshing and unexpected. Check out Valka. She's on the cover for book 6 of the Sun Eater. I'll put some art here for her. She's just super awesome. Then we got John from Nona the Ninth. I won't say much more about this character because I can't, but I am such a John simp. I absolutely love this character. Like top 3 in fiction. And we'll leave it at that. I'll put some art up here. Maybe some Marceline art because she's amazing, and her art has become like the canon for most of my characters in the Latoum series. But lastly, I put Lestara Lil from Malzahn. Love this character so much. Her adventures with Pearl and their banter back and forth are what pulled me through, or a big part of what pulled me through House of Chains, and it gave me something to kind of hold on to and had that comedic but also like heartfelt just energy that I needed, that I was really lacking in the beginning of that book. And where those two characters end up by the end of that story, and the fact that their banter is still so true. A lot of the fan art that I've seen of her, she's just a really cool character, and I always kind of latch on to the female characters of Malzahn because it's a rough world to live in for all the genders of that world. But I also like that the female characters in Malzahn have broader roles, and they're not really limited to today's society or our world or other common fantasy worlds. Limitations that women find themselves in, especially in high fantasy, that doesn't really exist in Malzahn. I'm not going to say they don't get mistreated in the world, because they definitely do. Just virtually everyone in Malzahn gets mistreated, but their roles and what they're able to do in society and what they're able to achieve and make of themselves is just very profound for high fantasy, and it's one of the highlights of the Malzahn series. And Lestara Lil is like a shining example of that, in my opinion. All right, number 9 is my newest and favorite character from the series. That's going to be Nona the Ninth, or Hadrian Marlowe. Nona obviously being from Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I cannot say a word about it. I do believe the author has released on Tor.com the first chapter or first 2 chapters of the book. So if you're very curious and you're a Latoum fan, go check it out. But I'm very much looking forward to the rest of the world meeting Nona. But I also put down Hadrian Marlowe from the Sun Eater series. Just such a cool character that I had thought was going to be a copy and paste of Paul from Dune. And he is so much more than that. And I was just extremely blown away and surprised by that. I don't want to say I went into it like so sure that was going to be the case. But it just, when you go in with a certain expectation and it's completely just shattered chapter after chapter, it's just really refreshing. And while I do find him to be similar to Darrow, I also find Darrow from the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown, Darrow and Hadrian are also very different. And it's really cool that Paul, Hadrian, and Darrow can exist in these three very similar worlds, but the worlds themselves also be their own thing and can be read independently and not compared, but also compared. It's just a really cool thing for these three sci fantasy worlds to exist in my timeline. I'm just very grateful to be alive during the time these books were written. Just really cool. Hadrian Marlowe, he's such a fascinating character. He's got such a big heart. He's extremely intelligent, but he's also just like full of flaws, like just flaws galore. And you spend a lot of time in his head and you learn how he processes certain things. I just find it to be extremely relatable and just really surprising for a white male character in a science fiction series. Just very, it could have been a very one-note character, and he is anything but one note. Number 10, books that made me cry. Easy answer, Noah the Ninth. I cried several times while reading this book. I read it together with my wife, although I kind of launched ahead of her because we were sharing the arc, and it got to a point where I just couldn't put it down. And so I cried while I read it. I actually had some recordings of me crying that I sent to PR Ford per her sadistic request, because she had actually just finished this ahead of me too. And then I also cried again with my wife when she was reading it several times. It's a very moving book. It's a very beautiful book. And I just cannot wait to talk about it with the rest of the world. That's all I'm going to say. The other book was Temple of No God by H.M. Long. This one surprised me because I really enjoyed Hall of Smoke and I really enjoyed Temple of No God, but I didn't feel emotionally connected to it in this way until the end of Temple of No God. Something happens, I want to say it's the epilogue, that caught me off guard. And really pulled on the feral heartstrings of a parent, which I am. I'm a father of two. And it just really, really moved me in an unexpected way. Kind of blindsided me, to be honest. And I kind of got choked up. It reminded me of, it's kind of the same way I felt when I finished Fall of Hyperion. Just totally choked me up by surprise. And I always love it when a book can do that, when it unexpectedly hits you right in the feels. Number 11, a book that made you happy. This would be by Gina McClintier, Stranger Things, The World Turned Upside Down. I actually received this for my birthday as a gift from Bookborn. Thank you, Bookborn, again. It was an awesome book. I love that show. Love season 4, volume 1 and 2. Cried my ass off with my wife watching it too. Right after Noah the Ninth. It was just a really rough June and July for us, but really, really enjoyed that book. It's like a behind-the-scenes collection of stories and essays and photos and just set prop pictures and all kinds of like fun for the fans content. And I just found it to be a really, really insightful read. I knew a lot of the information already just from being a fan of the show and following it pretty closely, but the way the information's compiled, it's like the book has like an in-world text. Like it's a book that physically looks like it belongs in that world. It's got like scuffs on it, like it belongs in the Hawkins library, and I'm so happy that it is now a part of my library. Really, really enjoyed it. If you're a fan of Stranger Things, check that book out. It is like a must read for all diehard Stranger Things fans, or just fans of filmmaking in general. If you're in film school, or you're interested in going to film school, or learning about film and making your own film in your backyard, check it out. It's very insightful for that too. I kind of wish I had it when I was in film school. Number 12, favorite book to movie adaptations you've seen this year. I have not seen any specific. I've seen some movies this year, but I've not seen any books to film adaptations. I did watch Foundation at the beginning of the year, I believe, on Apple TV. That's the loose adaptation of Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. Highly recommend that show. No one talks about it enough, in my personal opinion. I'm very excited to rewatch it. I'm really hoping they get greenlit for season 2. It really moved me in ways I was not expecting. And I've read Foundation, and it's a great book. It's very dated. So comparing that to like Dune or the other sci-fi that I'm reading, it just felt very much like underwhelming, you know? But the way the people at Apple, I don't know their name, unfortunately, the filmmakers that brought it to life, they pulled from the world of Foundation, not just the one book, but all the books. And I think they created something really special that I wish more people were talking about. So if you haven't checked it out yet, it's on Apple TV. It's called Foundation. Really excellent show. If you love Mass Effect, you love Dune, highly recommend it. Moving along here, number 13, favorite post you've written this year. Definitely my Noah the Ninth review. It is on Goodreads. I'll put a link down below, and it is also on my community tab. I'm doing a lot of written book reviews because I don't have a lot of time to shoot videos. So if you see me posting a review on the community tab, that's generally something I would wanted to have done a video for, but just didn't have the time that month. I've just got a really busy schedule right now. But I wrote a review for Noah the Ninth. It's spoiler free, and it's kind of a light review. It kind of just speaks towards my feelings after reading it, and in hopes that other people that might feel the same way, or I think people that are similar to me, it might speak to them in this way. How to explain it? It's a very weird review, and I'm sorry for writing it, but also I'm not sorry. I really enjoyed it. I'm really proud of it, and I think that it speaks to how the book affected me personally, and maybe it affected you a similar way, or maybe by reading that review, you'll think, you know, this, maybe that book's for me too. I'm not sure yet. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from it, but I really enjoyed writing it, and it felt like I had gotten something off my chest, and I'm kind of proud of it. So check it out. It's on the community tab, and it's on the Goodreads page for Nick Kimball. Moving right along though. 14, most beautiful books you got this year. Definitely my Folio Society editions of Jurassic Park and the Lost World. I'm not going to take them down because I was going to do an unboxing video for that, but they're kind of all over the place. But really, really beautiful books. Folio Society always goes above and beyond with their handmade books. My Dune Folio Society is stunning, and the Jurassic Park editions are no different. They are insides gorgeous. The dinosaur skin covers is really cool. Just if you're a Jurassic Park fan, a Michael Crichton fan, that's a must-have. I actually got that for my birthday. Actually, the other two books that I got there, I would consider the most beautiful books that I got this year visually, or for my birthday, or birthday gifts. I got the Waterstones edition of Dune from one of my patrons that I love dearly. I've wanted this book since the day Waterstones put an ad out, and all my friends and patrons from the UK were posting pictures on Instagram of it. And I was like, I really want it. I already have a million copies of Dune, but like that one's really stunning. Purple and indigo's my favorite color, so it just kind of spoke to me. It doesn't have the sprayed edges, but that's all cool. I can, you know, at some point I like to master the art of spraying edges, and I'll probably spray them myself. But lastly is the from the Czech Republic, one of my dear patrons I've had for a very long time, who I'm also currently reading Malazan with, got me the Gardens of the Moon from the Czech Republic, and it's just absolutely stunning. It's full of gold leaf text and a really unique art on the inside flaps, as well as the cloth cover has some original art. Just really, really stunning. I wish that the US copies of the Malazan series were this beautiful. I will absolutely cherish this forever. I can't read it. It's in Czech, but you know, I asked my patron who bought this for me at some point to help me learn how to read the first chapter, because that'd be really cool. But it's just an absolutely beautiful and stunning addition to this book series we both love. I can't stress enough how gorgeous it is. I'm very grateful to have had it and to know people from across the world that can send me gifts like this for my birthday that completely wow me. But yeah, absolutely love it. It's gonna be on my shelf forever. Bury me with this book. The last tag on this list, number 15, what books do you really need to read by the end of this year? A lot. By Tamandra Whitecastle, Queens of the Weird. I really need to read that one. That's on my immediate TBR. But I also have Fall of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. I really need to get to. I've been pushing this one off like every month for the last 5 months. So Kyle from Read by Kyle, if you're seeing this is me saying I'm going to read it either this month or next month, guaranteed. The Spear Cuts Through Water, I have an arc of that. It's a Simon Jimenez book. It's really great so far. Very unexpected, so it's taking me a minute to adjust to the format. But absolutely loving it regardless, and I highly recommend anything Simon Jimenez has ever written. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of books I'm trying to get to this year, and I could go on forever talking about them. I mean, literally, by Zamila Akatar, Gunmetal Gods, that's at the top of my list this month as well. The Wolf Den by L.D. Harper is on my list this month as well, and also Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. This one is really wonderful and was scarier than the adult book that I read that I won't name last month. I haven't finished it yet, but highly recommend this one for great queer or sapphic content with a horror vibe, a really strong horror vibe. Perfect for fans of The Locked Tomb and the Southern Reach series by Jeff Vandermeer. Check it out. Highly recommend this one, guys. But that's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this book tag. I never really do them, to be honest. But this one was a lot of fun. I really like the questions, and I've been really digging what I've been reading this year. So I wanted to kind of share a little bit with you guys, and I'm hoping the rest of 2022 is as positive as the first half has been. What are some of the books that you've read this year that you really liked? But also, I really want to know what is your favorite book that you read this year? That's actually let's make it simple. What is your favorite book you read so far in 2022? Drop it below in the comments. As always, guys, thanks so much for stopping by. I look forward to making more content for you in the future, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay wicked.